No one wants Ron DeSantis, Simone. The guy has a really difficult time connecting with people. That's the reality. And let's not even talk about that personal connection that you expect a candidate to have with voters. Even the best campaign in the world didn't save Jeb Bush, and $130 million that he spent. He didn't become president. Marco Rubio, we thought that he would potentially become the future of the Republican Party,
he's hitting at
raise
once.
a lot of money. Did not do well because he also had issues on the debate stage and connecting with people. And finally, I'll say this from a strategic position. Many of the bills that Ron DeSantis has signed into law in Florida do not resonate with swing voters across the country.
That's, you know what, dude? That's Shermichael is his name. First, welcome back to the show, Dana Loesch. First off, if it didn't resonate with swing voters, then pray tell, explain Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County's last election. I'll wait. We'll all wait. We'll all get us some ice, more ice in our sodies. Refill your Black Rifle coffee. Do whatevs. We'll wait. For real. Explain that. Explain then how you had Democrats that were verbally, like Democrats that had been previously very anti-DeSantis, that were very supportive, not just of him, but Republicans in Florida that were helping to make this happen. That's major. It was such a historic landslide election that there are no more Democrats in elected statewide office. Major. And it's not just that. What happened there, that is similar to what you saw in Virginia. There were Democrats voting for Youngkin in Virginia. Why? Because he was just plain and sensible about taxes and about lockdowns and about schools and giving parents the authority to determine what is or is not age appropriate for their children, which is what the Parents' Freedom and Education Bill was all about in Florida. Nothing was banned. They didn't ban anything like progressives banned Mark Twain or Dr. Seuss or anything like that. They just said some books are not appropriate for, second graders. It seems pretty reasonable. It's just some common sense age appropriateness from parents coming in there, right? Just some common sense stuff. I thought that the left liked common sense. Maybe I was wrong. But he's trying to hit two narratives here. The first narrative that he's trying to touch on is that, policy, it's just, he's too extreme. It's just not working with swing voters. That's just it. Democrats are trying the strategy of saying the opposite of what is observable truth and thinking that people will actually buy it if they say it enough. It's not true. It's one of the reasons why Democrats are underwater in favorability. Actually still, especially on this issue. It's because it does resonate. It's just common sense stuff. Now, the other thing that he was hitting on is he was hitting some of these narratives here, like saying something like, oh, his personality or whatever like this. This is actually something that I've seen some of the Trump camp also say, and some on the right, some of the surrogates for Trump, where they act like he's low energy or something like that. He's not low energy. I don't think he's any more low energy than Trump is. He's just different. Not everybody is the exact same person, which is why we have the word called individual. But what DeSantis's camp should be saying in response to this, I think they should play off, especially the leftist attacks, because the left is trying to make him, they're arguing two things, that both things that they're arguing cancel each other out. They're simultaneously arguing that he is, the second coming of the devil or the first coming of the devil or just the devil, whatever. And also that he's a weak introvert who can't do anything. Which is it? You can't have it both ways. I think DeSantis' camp should play off the whole he's not bombastic by saying that, while he's a servant of the public, he's not an entertainer. And any claims that he is, silent in 5 languages, like they said about Coolidge, who was arguably one of the greatest presidents we had, is greatly exaggerated. That's what his camp should be saying in response. The left, there's two things that are happening here. And both of these things I want you to be aware of. And as I was saying last hour or last segment, I'm immediately up front with everybody who I like and who I prefer in a primary. Obviously I'll vote for whomever the candidate is going into the general, but I have preferences in a primary. And one of the reasons why I have preferences in a primary is because we just celebrated the rejection of loyalty to a king or politician. We literally celebrated that with fireworks on a day called Independence Day. So I don't play the game that I owe my loyalty to anyone. I owe my loyalty to no one who's never demonstrated any loyalty to me. And I definitely, it's in my American DNA, do not owe my loyalty to any politician or representative, because it is the other way around. Don't get sold a false bag of goods. They have to continually demonstrate their loyalty to you. That's how this works. That's why we celebrate Independence Day. So, one of the things that I've seen, and the left has been pushing this, they need to, and I think that Trump surrogates also are looking at doing this, and it's not a bad a campaign strategy for a primary. I mean, you have to be able to try to set yourself apart, etc. They want to create the narrative, and this is the thing that this Michael guy was just talking about on whatever network that was. They're trying to push out this narrative that DeSantis is the new Scott Walker or Jeb Bush, i.e., they need him to peak early and wane. Now, the left does not, the media does not want anybody other than Trump. I know sometimes that makes people angry, but I'm telling you, they want him. Against Trump, that is the only way that Biden is competitive. I didn't say that he is inevitable. I said he's competitive. That's what Democrats are looking at. However, the reason why they're keeping Gavin Newsom in the wings is if it's not that scenario. That's why they're keeping him all in the bullpen, and he's running a somewhat more low-key shadow campaign. They need to have an alternative if it's not Trump. So they're playing a very interesting game here, and you need to be aware of it. They need DeSantis to peak early and wane, because that best ensures that they have Trump. Now, if you're in the Trump camp, you want of all the candidates, the only one who could actually pose a challenge to your primary campaign, you want them to peak early and wane too, right? You want to also minimize the peaking. So they need voters to believe that DeSantis is some sort of introverted wallflower, despite having previously been elected as a founding member of the grassroots House Freedom Caucus and two-time Florida governor. So that's why I think DeSantis' camp needs to play it off like, claims that he's silent in 5 languages a la Coolidge is greatly exaggerated. Because then you're indirectly comparing yourself to Calvin Coolidge, and everybody likes Calvin Coolidge, and he was one of the greater presidents that we have, and so that's a win-win for him as a deflection. So that's honestly how they should be handling this. But that is where you have a narrative that works both for the press and for the Trump campaign going into the primary. And that's a smart way to play it. I mean, primary campaigns are dust them ups. That's a smart way to play it. But that's how, whether or not it's smart is no indication that it's true. That's one thing that you also have to keep in mind. No early frontrunner, by the way, performs well when it's time to choose the nominee. I mean, John Huntsman was in the lead this time. What was it, during 2012? John Huntsman was in the lead. How well did that work? We don't have a President Huntsman, do we? Did he even make it to the convention? I don't even think he made it to the convention. I don't think he made it that far. I mean, look at Jeb Bush and Scott Walker. But there's also a couple of things there that it's very different, and it's a different period, and it's a different election time, and it's a different everything. But they still want to make that, they want to recreate that in the primary. Now, here's something else too. One thing that I don't see as working well, and I wish that people wouldn't get as nasty, because you do the left's work for them when you get super nasty. That's why I'm like, I'm not ever going to go after a candidate, because I've told everyone I prefer DeSantis in the primary. I have no problem saying that. I like Trump. I voted for him twice in a general election. In the primary, I prefer DeSantis. I tell you that because I respect you, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know. Everybody who's out there, they already have a favorite. I'm just being honest with you about it. But I'll call balls and strikes, as I always do. One thing I will say that doesn't work, I don't like it when I see people like drag in the wives or drag in the kids and do all this stuff. I don't like it. And I think that there are some reasons why some surrogates are kept on the periphery. I saw one really bad attack that happened over the weekend. We're pulling this up. Twitchy wrote about it. One of the surrogates, what's her face? She's that loomer chick that ran down in Florida. She used to want to come on the show all the time. And she was, I guess, arguing with someone, and she was going after Casey DeSantis. Casey DeSantis tells this story of the kids, because she's got 3 kids running around in the governor's mansion. And one of them drew on, with crayon on part of the wall in the dining room. It wasn't, horrendously bad. They just had crayon and they drew on part of the wall in the dining room. Oh my gosh, it was historic wallpaper, etc. And she's like, very nervous about it. And she's, telling that story to be relatable. Anyone who's ever had children, doesn't matter how great of a parent you are, and it doesn't matter how well your children are behaved normally. Children are children, especially toddlers with crayons. Anyone who thinks otherwise has never met a child. So she was relaying this story, and this one surrogate lost her mind and said that, the 3 kids, the DeSantis kids, are destroying the Florida's governor's mansion. If the DeSantis can't even control their own kids, how will they control the country? And then a conservative responded to them, and that's when the surrogate said, I could be married tomorrow if I woke up tomorrow and decided I want to be. I'm enjoying leaving a legacy and creating something of value that can be remembered by others someday, instead of rushing into a marriage and pregnancy to live a mediocre life void of accomplishment, only to be stuck raising kids who share the DNA of someone I will only grow to resent if I get divorced someday. That's what the Loomer lady said. Oh my gosh. Imagine describing the most important role that you could have as mediocre and void of accomplishment. And is it shocking that it comes from someone who's single and childless? What is with childless people single and childless people that always want to weigh in on everybody else's how they raise their kids? That sounds like a progressive Planned Parenthood supporter. It doesn't sound like a conservative or Republican surrogate. I think people need to kind of check themselves and not get run away. I think from the rumor was that Trump was going to hire her, and then his aides were like, "Are you mad?" And it never happened, because he listened to, if somebody finally gave him some smart counsel there, and he didn't, because that would have been a nightmare. Can you imagine having to be responsible for that as part of your campaign? Good grief. People just need to kind of calm down. It just doesn't make any sense. I also hear some, people who get into it so much, and they say, I just, if Trump doesn't win, I could never support the candidate. Okay, then you support Biden. You support Democrats. I don't have any time for that, nor does the country. This is the last election you got. That's it. Can you imagine? I will accuse any patriot that will not support who the nominee is in the general. I will accuse them of aiding and abetting communism. Because that's the truth of it. That's worse than the whole never Trump thing.